Hello friends, it has been a couple of months since I last saw you, but I am back for another book video because I have a lot of fun doing these and I want to keep doing these, and I'm gonna make an effort to try to do them more often. And I have a few video ideas that I am going to be working on and trying to get up for you when my schedule allows. And if there is anything in particular you want to see from me, then please do let me know because I am enjoying doing this and I love sharing this with you all. But today, what I want to do, as you can tell by the title, is I wanted to sit down and just go through all of the books that I read over the course of March and April. I know that we're getting late into May right now. I was gonna do a spring reading thing like I did for winter, but I've committed myself in May. I'm doing like a sapphic only month, so all the books I'm reading this month are sapphic books because I realized that my ratio of like sapphic books to like MLM books was like way off, so I thought it would be good to do a whole month for that, and I thought I'd make a whole separate video for all the sapphic books I've read this month to talk about that. So that is going to come later, and instead I'm going to do March and April, and then my May book will be coming at a later date and we can talk about all the sapphic books I read this month. But enough blabbering. I read 15 books over March and April. Most of them are YA. Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler free. I will sort of talk about how I feel about the books and like the general idea and like maybe what I loved and didn't like about them, etc. But for the most part, I am going to keep it spoiler free, and if I feel like giving any spoilers, I will let you know before I do so. Let's get started. I started March with The Hunger Games because obviously Sunrise on the Reaping was coming out, so I had to do a full reread because I had not read these books since I was 14. And we had to read them in school for our assignment. It was our assigned book for year 10. So I hadn't read them since then, outside of Songbirds, obviously, which I read a couple years ago. And it was so good to reread them. I already did a bit of a talk about these books on my main channel, and obviously I have a whole video about Sunrise on the Reaping already, but overall, I'll get into them a little bit. Also though, I really have to complain. Before the release of Sunrise on the Reaping, I didn't own The Hunger Games. I had the paperbacks back when I was 12, I think I bought them, but like those are in New Zealand. I think I lent them to friends at a time and I never got them back. So I had to rebuy them. And I knew that Sunrise on the Reaping was a hardcover, so I was like, I will buy the full set in hardcovers so that they match. This is so upsetting. Why is it so much bigger? Oh my god. When I opened it and I saw that it was bigger, I like almost cried. I was so upset. But you know, whatever. It is what it is. It's fine. I don't even care. Anyway, The Hunger Games, I don't think I need to tell you about. We all know what The Hunger Games are about. We all love The Hunger Games. If you have not read them, you have to read them. I'm sure you've heard it before. They are so good, and like I hadn't forgotten how incredible they were, but I definitely had like forgotten how incredible they were. I had such a good time reading these, and like I feel like reading them as an adult really changed the experience a bit, because when I was reading them as a kid, like Katniss was older than me. I viewed her as someone to like look up to. She was like a role model and someone I thought was like so incredible and strong, and someone I wanted to like be like, you know, I wanted to make a difference and like do something important, and like it inspired me as a kid. And now reading it as an adult, I look at her and I'm like, oh my god, that is a child, you know? And like viewing all the actions she makes and like watching the relationships and the choices everyone makes, and like really sitting with the fact that she is a child, like she is 9 years younger than me, made it hit in such a different way. And I connected with the story in such a different way to how I did in the past. And I thought that that was like a really incredible way to read these books. And if you read The Hunger Games as a kid, as a teenager, and you have not read them since and you are now an adult, I highly recommend rereading them because it is such a different experience. And there is so much of reality reflected in these books that you may have missed when you read them before. As, you know, the ranking goes, Catching Fire is the best book in this series. It is phenomenal. I am obsessed with it. I ate it. I read it in, I think, 2 days, which is the quickest out of all of them for me. It goes Catching Fire, Hunger Games, Mockingjay. That is the ranking of the original trilogy. Argue with the wall. One thing I noticed was, you know, the changes between films and the books, which is what I talked about in my main channel video. You know, the one that stays the truest, Catching Fire, book and movie are quite similar. Mockingjay changes a lot, and so it was really interesting to read the book and realize what had changed, because I've always been a Mockingjay film truther. The film has always been my favorite over the book, and I knew that going into it, so I had like low expectations for the book, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how much I actually enjoyed it, and I realized that I did it dirty when I was younger. So it was really good to reread and to like notice all those differences and connect with the characters differently. And The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is just such a like twisted and disturbing read in like the best way. I think it does such a good job of portraying power dynamics and just the inside of the mind of someone who is just a terrible person who plays off of other people's emotions and just is so selfish and unempathetic and does anything required to gain power. I thought it was such an interesting read, and it is so good, although so difficult to get through. And then obviously Sunrise on the Reaping I made a whole video about already, so I don't feel the need to go into that, but you can go check out that video if you haven't already. Ultimately, every single one of these books is a 5-star to me. I fucking love this series. They like were so important to me as a kid, and they've never stopped being important to me. I do think that like if you haven't read them, you have to read them, and even if you have read them, you have to read them again. So that's all I'm really gonna say about The Hunger Games. And then after I finished The Hunger Games, we, as I said, were on a YA streak, because next I read the Percy Jackson series, the original Percy Jackson series, because there's so many of these. I have never read these before. Shocking, I know, because I was a reader at the time when these were like popular, like everyone was reading about Percy Jackson, The Hunger Games, John Green, all of that was sort of happening at the same time, and I never read Percy Jackson, and Kat told me that I had to. I keep seeing people talk about it. There's obviously the TV show. I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll get them. I'll read them. And they were so fun. They were really cute. So if you don't know what Percy Jackson is, they are very, very easy reads because they are middle grade. So they are written for like 12-year-olds, so they're very easy to get through. They're very fun, and they, you know, are very simple, but in like a really good way. And they basically revolve around this kid named Percy, who is 12 years old. So all of these kids, they're half gods because their parents are gods, but they're one of the Greek gods. The Greek gods are real, and they all are based in Western civilization, in the center of Western civilization, which is the US, and Olympus is at the top of the Empire State Building because of course it is. And it's just a whole mess. There are monsters running around in the streets chasing these kids. And so they have to go to this camp, which is the only place that they're safe. It's a camp for half-bloods called Camp Half-Blood. Very on the nose name. And the kids, if they are deemed worthy, will go on quests. And so each one of these books is a different quest that Percy goes on, in particular with Annabeth and his friend Grover. And there are other characters that come into play in different books as well. And the first book is The Lightning Thief, and the quest is someone stole Zeus's lightning bolt and he needs to go find it. And he needs to return it. And they end up, you know, they face Medusa, they face like a bunch of other monsters, and they have to overcome all these like little mishaps that happen. And are out, you know, trying to stop a war from breaking out between the gods, because that would be absolutely detrimental, obviously. Things move very, very quickly. Things happen and are over incredibly fast. It's kind of like, oh, okay, they're kids, so they treat everything as not a big deal. Like, they're in these situations that are like horrifying and intense and absurd, and it's like, oh my god, and they just kind of like, wow, this is terrifying, but we solved it in 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, we're just gonna move on. Okay, all right, let's go, carrying on then. And they go through a bunch of different like trials and whatever until they finally get to the end and, you know, save the day, as you do. Each book focuses on a different quest where they overcome different things. They have to face different problems. They go through, you know, friendship and heartbreak and communication errors and like trust, and then also their kids. So there's like, you know, a little bit of a romance plot going on, and there's betrayal and friendship and testing of strength. And ultimately, it's so, reading books in a middle grade is like, it's so funny because obviously I'm reading this as an adult and I'm having a good fun time, but like so much of it is me just being like, these adults are terrible. Why are you sending 12-year-olds out into the world to go fight monsters? What the fuck are you doing? Percy's mother, Sally, I fucking hate her, all right? I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't know if other people hate Sally Jackson. Maybe you don't if you read these when you were a kid, but I hate her. I really don't like her because, firstly, Percy spent his entire life feeling like left out and not knowing who he is and getting like expelled from schools and never fitting in and not knowing why. And she never fucking told him. She just kept sending him off to different boarding schools and telling him to fucking get over it. She's dating an abusive man because she thinks it'll protect him, but all it's doing is putting him in harm's way as well as hurting her. And like, listen, she's like, I did it for you. I don't give a fuck. It didn't help him. Ultimately, he would have been better off and safer at Camp Half-Blood to begin with. He deserved to know that information, and I hate that she kept it from him. Didn't actually protect him, ultimately, and just meant he didn't know who he was for a longer time. And then, constantly, throughout the series, she's like, you have to do what you have to do. Go out and save the world. He is like between 12 and 16 years old, ma'am. No, don't be sending him out to war. How fucking dare you? What the fuck? What? No, that is not his responsibility. All right? That is not his responsibility. And it pissed me off a little bit, just how much they're just like, yeah, no, this is all kids' responsibility. It's fine if they die. They have to go fight this war. Pardon? But there is lots of good, conversation around like responsibility and parental trauma and friendship and love and loss, etc. And it is a really lovely series. The series as a whole, I enjoyed more than the individual books, if that makes sense. Like, I give the series as a whole about 4 stars, but I give every book like 3.25, 3.5, you know? But I really enjoyed the series, and I have just purchased Heroes of Olympus, which is the next series of this series, to read shortly. So I will let you know how those go when I get up to those. After Percy Jackson, I read the Divine Traitors duology, which is by Camilla Cole, and it's So Let Them Burn and This Ends in Embers. These are also YA, as I said, heavy on the YA this month. And this first one had been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. I started reading it without knowing there was a second one, and then I found out there was a second one, and I was like, I always do this to myself. I always buy books thinking they're standalones, and then I find out that they're not. But I really liked the concept of these, and I think that it was pretty well executed. It's set in South America. It's got like South American folklore in here, so it's got like really nice cultural aspects. It's a lot about colonization and native people like fighting for their land back and for their culture. It is a fight against colonization and taking a stand against bigger powers. I think that that's a really good story to be telling, and it's really important. Basically, it revolves around these 2 sisters who are 17 and 18, I believe. One of them is demisexual, which is really cool, and the other one is lesbian, which is also really great. We've got some good representation in here. We don't get very much ace rep, so it was really nice to read a demi character, and I think that that was done in a really good way as well, and it is important to the character, and you can see that that's what it is, and it is made known and clear, and I think that that's a really cool representation to have, and I'm glad that we have it. But yeah, it's these two sisters. They are living in a small country that has just won a war against a colonizer. They are in the aftermath of that. It's been several years since that, but that is the time they are living. And in this culture, people have magic where they're able to contact their ancestors and then channel them and use magic from their ancestors. With the exception of the main character, Farron, who is special. She is the Empyrean, which means that she connects with the gods. This culture have 3 gods, and instead of channeling her ancestors, she channels them. She can communicate with them. She channels their power. So she is like the strongest person there. She developed that power when she was 12, and she ran away in the middle of the night to go fight in this war against the colonizers, and ultimately is the reason they won the war, was because a 12-year-old went off and channeled some gods, which is horrifying. It worked out, and the colonizers have dragons, by the way. I didn't mention that. There are dragons in this book, so what a win. And then it moves into her sister ends up bonding with a dragon and a dragon rider from, you know, the enemy, and she has to go away with them, and so now she is living in enemy territory. She has lost the connection to her ancestral magic, and she has to like deal with that loss. But whilst being in this enemy territory, she develops like friendships, and I was kind of worried. I was like, are we gonna do a like sometimes we can come to agreements and not all colonizers are bad? And I was like, no, we're definitely not gonna do that, because the person who wrote this book is a person of color, and this is like her culture. So she's not going to go in and be like, colonizers are good. So that didn't happen. I was only worried for a minute before I like had to be like, wait, no, she is writing this. It's not written by a white man. And it, you know, talks about like racism and, you know, discrimination and oppression of people. And I found a really interesting aspect of it is like she went to live with the enemy, with these dragon riders, and I hadn't considered the fact that like these are global powers. This is like a colonizer. They have colonized other countries and other islands. So some of the people who she went to school with at this dragon rider academy were people from other colonized places. And so they aren't really on the side of the oppressor either. If they are fighting in that war, it's because they have been forced to be there, but they don't morally side with them. And I thought that that was a really interesting aspect that I hadn't really considered of like, obviously not everyone is going to be like for the oppression and for the government. We see that a lot. People are obviously against their government. And I thought it was like a really interesting perspective to like, yeah, put in other cultures in this place that are like, our country was demolished as well. We lost things as well. This is where we are now and what we have to do in order to survive. And I thought that was really interesting. And it is a third person dual pov, which is my absolute weakness. I love me. I love me a good multi-pov book. I think the pacing was a little bit weird. Like nothing really happened in this first book until like the end where everything happened. And then the second book didn't really entirely go in the way that I thought it would, but I enjoyed them, but they're definitely not my like favorite books. I think I gave them around a 3.75 each. I think that they're worth a read, but I don't think they're like, you have to read these right now. But I think that they are an interesting story and the cultural aspects are really good, and I love me a good story with a dragon and magic. So if you're into that, then absolutely do check it out. They are really lovely stories. So after this, I read this book, The Sunblessed Prince by Lindsay Bird. I adore this book. I really liked this book. I loved this book. It was so beautiful, and again, it is a multi-pov third person book. We have 3 different POVs, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I love to see in my books. It is my favorite thing in the entire world, so already massive points. It is sun and moon. Like, quite literally sun and moon. It is 2 countries at war. There's sun and there's the moon. There's the sun people and the moon people. Most people are just people, but there are also people who have magic, who have been blessed by the gods, and they are givers and they are reapers. And givers, they can heal people. They can like touch you and they can heal you. And they can even bring you back to life with enough like energy and thought. They can revive the dead. And then reapers, they kill everyone they touch, which is, that would be a difficult way to live. And the 2 main characters in this are, there's Kat, who is a reaper, and there is Elysian, who is a giver, and he is a prince. And then Elysian's sister, Fenlia, who is, I think she's only like 12, and the others, I believe, are like 20-ish. And it is just so lovely. You become a reaper by dying, and then the moon god chooses you and you come back and you are a reaper now. And Kat died and became a reaper when he was only, and he has never been able to touch anyone or experience any sort of intimacy at all since then, partially because, you know, if he touches someone he'll die, but also because in the Moon Kingdom, if you are a reaper, you get thrown into a tiny cell to live the rest of your days in the dark and brought out only for assassination missions, which is horrifying and devastating, thinking about the fact that, you know, this person was thrown in this cell at like years old and forced to like grow up there. And then he meets Elysian on the battlefield. He's been sent to execute him because no one knows he's a giver, but obviously when he touches him, since he is a giver, he cannot die from that. And Kat's like, well, time for me to face severe punishment, yippity-doo. But instead, because Elysian is a kind, lovely, wonderful human being, he instead takes him to like a safe house in his home city to give Kat like a new life in this place. It's not a prison, but they also like can't leave. He has to live with all the other givers and the reapers. But this is the first time Kat has seen kindness like ever, really. And he can also touch Elysian. And that's like an incredible thing, to be able to be seen and to be able to be touched and like heard after his entire life being treated like nothing. And it's just really, really beautiful. It kind of separates there by like, it then moves into a whole political conversation where Elysian has to go back to war. There is also a really lovely found family element to it of Elysian has a best friend named Leo, and their relationship is beautiful. It is such a beautiful, beautiful friendship, and I adore it. I love them. I loved their relationship and everything that they did and they spoke about. There's so much like love in this book and so much just passion and kindness, and there's also a really good mystery element to it because there is betrayal and you have to figure out where the betrayal happened and who betrayed them. And ultimately it's just a fantastic book. It is, I think, my favorite read of the year so far, and it's going to be really hard to top. Outside of the new All for the Game book, obviously The Golden Raven is my favorite read of the year. Other than that, this has been my top read of the year, and it's going to be really hard to top. So I highly, highly recommend this book. It is so beautiful. There is a second one coming out at some point. I don't know when, but I am so, so excited to read it when it comes out, and I will be rereading this as well. It's going straight onto my reread shelf because yes, I have a shelf that is specifically for my favorite books that require rereading, and it is going on that shelf. So obviously that was a 5-star. I don't think I need to say it, but I said it anyway. After The Sunblessed Prince, I changed it up a bit and went for something a little different. I read Starling House by Alex E. Harrow because I really like Alex E. Harrow. I've read 2 of her other books. I read 10,000 Doors of January and Once in the Future Witches. Both are fantastic books. I adore them. I think they're so cool. I love the way that they're written because like she writes stories within in her stories, and I think that's so clever and so cool. All of her books have books in them, and I fuck with that so hard. I love it. This book is about this woman named Opal. She is 27, and her little brother, who is 16. They live in a motel because their mom died when they were quite young, and Opal has had to effectively raise her brother, and they have nothing. They live in this motel because there was a bet between their mother and the motel owner before she died. It's like a struggle with poverty and money and trying to like make the best of life. And there's this like really creepy old house that people avoid. Like no one goes near it with a 10-foot pole except for the person who lives in it, who never comes out. No one ever sees him. But Opal always dreams about this house, and she's been dreaming about this house her entire life. There is a book that was written about this house. It's like a really popular old children's book, and she loves that book. And she feels a calling to the house. And one day she goes to the house and she gets hired as a housekeeper by the man who lives there, who is a man around her age, and he is dark and brooding type, a bit creepy. And, you know, she doesn't really trust him at first, and she like steals his stuff. But he's paying her really good money. And so she keeps the job, and she kind of becomes really comfortable in this house. It feels like her house, and there's like a lot going on with her and her relationship with her brother. There's this weird relationship happening between her and the homeowner, whom I don't know why I can't remember his name right now. And they're obviously developing their own little romantic thing going on. Feelings are happening. And she's trying to also sell a lot of lies to a lot of people. There is people coming in who want to like buy the land and build on the land, but like this house is magical and like haunted as fuck, so they don't really want to give up the house. And it's a whole like power struggle and just a lot of like love and loss. And I really enjoyed this book. I just really, really like her writing. I feel like I would read anything that she writes. Don't think it's my favorite of her books. I think of the 3 that I've read, this is probably my least favorite, but I still very much did enjoy it, and I give it a 4.5 out of 5, I think. I do recommend reading it. I thought that there was a lot of really good emotion and a lot of really good conversation, and I do really like the sort of haunting elements, and yeah, it was a really good story, and I explained it really poorly. I should really write notes about the things that I'm reading as I'm reading them, but I did not, so you'll have to take my word for it, and I'll start writing notes about the things that I'm reading going forwards. Okay, I pinky promise. And the final book that I read in April, I didn't technically finish until May, but I think I finished it on May 1st, is A Botanical Daughter, which is different to most things that I usually read. It is a sort of horror, but it's a cozy horror, which is an interesting combination of things. It's these 2 men from the 1800s, and they're obviously gay people can't have kids in the 1800s. You're not even allowed to be gay, so like no one knows that they're a couple. They're just these rich men who live in this like giant greenhouse in the middle of town, but they've been together for many years. One of them is a botanist and one of them is a taxidermist, and they are quite something. They both are extremely passionate about their work, and effectively they kind of build a daughter out of plants. That's kind of what happens, is they are never able to have kids, so why not build a daughter out of plants? And obviously shit can go a bit wrong when you're trying to build a daughter out of plants. There's a lot of morally questionable shit that goes on in this book. I did really fucking love the writing. I fell in love with these characters on like the 3rd page. You get to a point where one of them in particular is making some choices and doing some things where you're like, oh my god, you've lost the plot. Like straight up, I'm like, bro, sir, you've lost it. I need you to like take a deep breath, because shit, stop, Please. So yeah, there's a lot of like very morally questionable things. There's a lot of push and pull. There's so many disagreements. They are such a messy, messy couple. And I think that that's kind of nice to see. Like, they are my gay dads, but also they are a little bit toxic. a bit toxic. And I think that we don't see that a lot in queer books very much. There's a lot of just like, you know, good relationships and happy relationships. People don't really want to talk about like messy, real relationships. And this is a very messy, real relationship, and also some like high stakes shit going on. They also have a housekeeper that comes in who is a young woman, and she kind of becomes part of their family as well. And that's an extra little interesting sort of element to it too. And ultimately, I think that is a really interesting book and a really good read. And I do really recommend this. I thought that it was really fucking weird and also really fun. And I think it has a lot of mixed reviews on it. And I kind of think I get why. It was like messy and problematic, but like I recommend it. I think that it's really good. I really like a good Victorian gay couple. And the idea of building a daughter is insanity. But they did it. And obviously shit goes wrong. So that's A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock. I realized I didn't say that. So yeah, that was the final book I read over those 2 months. I hope that you enjoyed listening to me rambling about them. I'm really enjoying doing all of my reading, and I think that I had a pretty decent couple of months. It's currently halfway through May, and I've just started my 5th sapphic book of the month, I believe, and I'm excited to get back to you and share with you all of my thoughts about them, because so far I have many. And yeah, my mom is coming to visit for a month, so I may be a bit late on that, but we'll see where we end up. I look forward to seeing you then. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to hit subscribe so you can sit down with me to chat about all my sapphic books and any other book-related videos or otherwise that I may be uploading in the future. A lot of you have asked if I have a Goodreads or a Storygraph and for me to share them, and I do, and I've just forgotten to do so. My Storygraph, which I use more frequently than Goodreads, is Kiwi, Q-I-W-I. You're welcome to follow me there if you like. I think my Goodreads is the same, but I might be lying to you. Yeah, so I will see you in a few weeks for my Sapphic May wrap up. I look forward to seeing you there. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, month, until I see you again. Goodbye.